The story of Chong, big spender Tse-kyung, embodies the story of the Chinese Triads. He was perhaps Hong Kong's most notorious gangster in the 1990s. A short man with a protruding forehead, he was a small-time crook until he hit it big in 1991. He and his gang hijacked an armored truck carrying $20 million to the airport. He earned his nickname with the purchases of dozens of top-of-the-line sports cars, including a shocking, for that time, yellow Lamborghini. Chang was arrested for the armored car robbery and sentenced to 18 years, but got out after 3 years on a technicality. While in jail, he made friends with loan sharks who reportedly chained people inside their houses and burned them if they didn't pay their debts. Chong held such a grudge against the police for his experience in jail, he rammed a bulldozer into a prison guardhouse and firebombed the house of Hong Kong's Secretary of Security. After hitting the big time, he traveled the world playing games of chance. He frequently flew to South Africa and reportedly once won $2 million in a single hand in the Philippines. Big Spender switched from hijacking cars to hijacking people. In a crime that went wrong, his gang accidentally killed a businessman kidnapped in Shenzhen by tying tape so tightly around his mouth he suffocated to death during a 2-hour ride from Shenzhen to Jiangsu. In the 1990s, Chong and his gang abducted two of Hong Kong's richest tycoons, Walter Kwok, one of the world's richest property developers, and Victor Li, the son of a billionaire Li Ka-shing, and held them for ransom for over $200 million. Although Kwok refuses to discuss the matter and claims it never happened, he was released only 24 hours later for a payment of $80 million. The news reported that his car was forced off-road by kidnappers and he was taken away. A similar scenario happened to Lee. He was taken away after his purple limousine was forced off the road and reportedly kept in a refrigerator with air holes drilled in. He paid the ransom of $125 million or 1 billion Hong Kong dollars. Chang reportedly kept 120 million of the ransom for himself. The rest, 100 million, was split among his accomplices. Some of Big Spender's gambling losses and wins were regarded as money laundering. Big Spender's luck finally runs out. Chong's goal was to hold people in such state of terror that all he had to do is phone the people he wanted money from. He didn't have to abduct anybody. After intensive manhunt, utilizing hundreds of police, Chong and 30 members of his gang were finally captured, arrested in mainland China, not Hong Kong. Usually when a criminal is wanted in Hong Kong and was captured in mainland China, Hong Kong police wanted him back. But this was not the case with Big Spender, so much was the hatred for him from the Hong Kongese. Worried that he might get off again in Hong Kong, and well aware of the harsh punishments that awaited him in China, Hong Kong refused to get him back. Chang and several members of his gang were found guilty of smuggling explosive and kidnapping, sentenced to death and executed within hours. It was the first time a Hong Kong resident was executed under Chinese law. China had a death penalty, Hong Kong didn't, and the police knew that. And such were or are the Triads. The roots of the Triads are found in centuries-years-old secret societies dating back to 1000 BC, when peasants were often preyed on by evil leaders and protected themselves by forming self-help groups. According to legend, the first Triads were founded by Chinese monks committed to fighting injustices, like real-life Batman. Over time, these groups, it is said, became so politically powerful they were able to prop up or bring down emperors on their whim. During the Qing dynasty, they helped resist the Manchu who ruled China. The Qing dynasty is also called Manchu dynasty or Qing Manzu. It's the last of the imperial dynasties of China, spanning the years 1644 to 1912. Under the Qing, the territory of the empire grew to triple its size under the preceding Ming dynasty, which ruled from 1368 to 1644. The population grew from some 150 million to 450 million. Many of the non-Chinese minorities within the empire being Sinicized, made Chinese, integrated, and a national economy was established. The Qing dynasty was first established in 1636 by the Manchus to designate their regime in Manchuria, now the northwest region of China. In 1644, the Chinese capital of Beijing, and the starting of Manchu dynasty has a deceitful beginning. In 1644, the Chinese capital of Beijing was captured by the rebel leader Li Zisheng, and desperate Ming dynasty officials called on the Manchus for aid. The Manchus took advantage of the opportunity to seize the capital and establish their own dynasty in China. By adopting the Ming form of government and continuing to employ Ming officials, the Manchus pacified the Chinese population. Manchus kept half of the officials Manchurian to keep the power and set out garrisons around the country to keep rebels to a minimum or non-existent. Under Xianxi, the second Qing emperor, the Manchus forced the Russians to abandon their fort at Abzin, located along the Manchurian border on the Amur River. In 1689, a treaty was concluded with Russia marking the northern extent of the Manchurian boundary to the Argon River. Over the next 40 years, the Dzungar Mongols were defeated and the empire was extended to include Outer Mongolia, Tibet, Dzungaria, Turkestan and Nepal. Under the two succeeding emperors, commerce continued to thrive. Handicraft industries prospered and Roman Catholic missionaries were tolerated and employed as astronomers and artists. In addition, painting, printmaking and porcelain manufacture flourished, and scientific methods of philology were developed. The following rulers, however, weren't able to manage the country as well. There was increased pressure from the ever-growing population, and land ownership was in the hands of a few people. The Manchu armies lost their strength, and popular unrest, aggravated by severe floods and famine, added to the Taiping and Nian rebellions in the south and north. The efforts of updating the country, bringing in some Western influences, were slow to not moving. They met opposition especially from conservatives, especially through the efforts of the Dowager Empress Cixi. Bureaucratic inefficiency and corruption became widespread, a funny example being the diversion of funds from upgrading the fleet to constructing a huge porcelain marble warship outside the Beijing Summer Palace. Better navy, jewelry. The First Opium War, the Anglo-French War, the Sino-Japanese War, and the Boxer Rebellion resulted in defeats for China and granting of major concessions for foreign powers. In this background, the Triads were operating. They were secret societies opposing the harsh rule of the Manchu Qing dynasty, regarded by many Han Chinese as foreigners and barbarians, which aimed to replace the old Ming dynasty, which they did. In the 1850s, Triad rebellions threatened Shanghai and Xiamen. By the 1900s, revolutions had begun to form throughout the country, and some historians believe the Triads may have played a role in the toppling of the last emperor in 1911. Republican revolution led to the abdication of the boy emperor Shantong, better known as Pui, and transfer of power to the provisional republican government. This was the Triads' background and melting pot. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the following years of development. The Triads didn't remain a secret society operating in the background. So that's all for today. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe. I'd like to thank the latest 10 people that subscribe to the channel. We are growing slowly, but I hope shortly. That's all for today. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. I'm Alex, and until next time, beware of the falling apples.